one homework that is uploaded on the website. So go ahead and download that homework. Okay, so any questions on the previous homeworks? Are the solutions uploaded? Huh? Okay, so I think this Sigbat made the solutions. We'll upload them, okay, for all the homeworks. Any questions on the previous homework? Did you understand it fully? Yeah? Yeah. There are no? Okay. Yeah, that's what it means. It's a flat feeding channel nearly. That's the whole idea, right? See, the whole idea is we gave you a pedestrian B profile. Okay? So it has its analog analog frequency response. Okay? Now, if you take any 30 kilohertz chunk anywhere, or minus infinity to plus infinity band, you take, of course, first of all, you have to truncate it to minus 1 over tt to plus 1 over 2t, right? And you have to fold it, or assuming, of course, assuming strictly you have an IQ's class of pulse, you just truncate it to minus 1 over 2t to plus 1 over 2t. Okay? And that's going to be wide or narrow depending on the bandwidth of the system, 1 over 2t. If minus 1 over t2 plus 1 over t2, that's total bandwidth is 1 over t, if it is 30 kilohertz, you're going to see a small portion of this entire channel. Okay? And that small portion will look nearly flat. There might be a small variation, but nearly flat. And when you take the IDFT of that 30 kilohertz chunk, you may end up with one pulse, one tap. Okay, that is like one's realization of the channel at that time. Okay, that's what it means. Okay, and let us say you widen this band, let's say to 200 kilohertz. And over 200 kilohertz, you may see a little frequency selectivity that may manifest as one dominant tap and a second tap much a little below the first tap, and maybe a few more taps but are quite weak. So you can sort of view it as a two ray channel effectively. There may be small terms beyond that. And if you further increase the bandwidth, let us say to 10 megahertz, then you see a lot of frequency selectivity, and that manifests as intersymbol interference channel, and you will see a number of taps. Okay, I just want you to get a feel of things, what is narrow band and what is wide band. Because pedestrian B channel is somewhat like a measured channel. Somebody has measured it and had given us the delays as well as the, basically it's a power delay profile, the average power of each tap and the delays, and you simulate them, each tap as a complex zero mean complex Gaussian process with variance that is dictated by the power of that. Okay, that is the reason why I gave you that exercise. And in fact, you can use this procedure to in fact implement a channel. Okay, sometimes you can use an FFT routine, IFFT routine to kind of approximate this. Okay, fine. So far we have discussed a zero forcing linear equalizer and an MMSE linear equalizer, as well as a fractionally spaced linear equalizer. And the homework that has been just given to you, which is loaded in the website, deals with several problems, homework problems, related to these, the material covered in the last 3 lectures or so. Okay? So spend some time on these problems. It also includes some simulation assignment. It has problem solving as well as simulation. So last problem especially deals with the simulation. Try to understand exactly what is going on. Okay, so today what we will do is we will discuss what is called an MMSE DFE equalizer. Okay, we will derive the receiver structure, analyze the performance. What's happening? We'll derive the receiver structure, analyze the performance, and analyze the performance for various classes of channels. That is, let us say, a fixed ISI channel, like 0.9, the two-ray channel. We can take it as an example and analyze it. And we will also analyze the performance of MMSE DFE as well as MMSE for a multipath channel with certain delay spread. We will analyze the performance for the case of both narrowband and wideband cases. Okay, and see what sort of performance we'll get if you have to equalize using equalize in a multipath set scenario. Okay, and we'll also consider briefly consider the extension of this MMSE linear equalizer and MMSE DFE to the case of a system with multiple receive antennas, and you will see that the extension is fairly straightforward. I gave you a hint of it in the previous lecture, and we will see how the receiver can be generalized for diversity combining as well as co-channel or adjacent channel interference suppression. In fact, once you derive the receiver, you have the receiver at your disposal. You can use it for diversity combining or mitigating ISI, suppress co-channel interference or adjacent channel interference, or a combination of all of them. You can have ISI, you can have CCI, you can have ACI, you can have fading. You can throw all of them in the mix and still the receiver, same receiver can be used. Okay? And we'll also show that this so-called MMSE DFE, under the assumption that this decision DFE stands for decision feedback equalizer, under the assumption that the decision feedback mechanism is error-free, we will show that it is a capacity achieving structure. What does that mean? If you assume that the decision feedback section doesn't cause error propagation, the mutual information at the output of this receiver is same as the mutual information that you would obtain for the input-output system model, original input-output system model. So that means this particular receiver is a capacity optimal receiver. Okay, and it also turns out that the capacity of MMSE DFE is also nearly same as the capacity of a system employing OFDM. Okay, so we'll start with 3DMA, we'll start with a particular receiver and we'll show that it achieves capacity under certain assumptions, and we'll also show that the capacity of this system is equivalent to that of OFDM, although OFDM and TDMA are different systems altogether. But ultimately we'll show that they both offer nearly the same performance. But the differences lie in terms of the signaling mechanisms, I mean the signal structure as well as the implementation complexity. Okay, so therefore it is extremely important to understand the underlying theory, for an MMSE DFE structure. Okay, with that I think we are ready to consider this so-called MMSE DFE. Well, no, this is not acceptable, this kind of disturbance. So what's going on? Just reduce the volume a little bit. Well, this is an anti-aliasing filter. Whose bandwidth is where L is the oversampling factor. Okay, and we take sample at the rate kT by L, then we have a fractionally spaced receiver. Can you turn off recording for a moment? Can you? Can I use this instead maybe? I think the disturbance was because both were on, no? No? Huh? Okay. Well, yeah. Let's go ahead. Okay, so let's consider this MMSE DSP. Well, to start with our favorite D-domain notation, received signal, it goes through a feed-forward filter. Okay? It's fine? Okay. Okay. We'll also write down the time domain equivalent structure in a moment. Okay. What we are trying to do here is that at this point, you end up with the received some variable zk equal to xk minus zk. You can make your decisions and use these decisions. Okay, they go through this filter 1 minus b of d. We'll talk about what this 1 minus b of d is in a moment. This is basically reconstruct the ISI intersymbol interference due to the past decisions. Okay, and you subtract the ISI here. So then you end up with the desired signal itself. Okay, you'll see, you'll learn a little more about this in a moment. Okay, y of d is equal to p of d. That's the notation we use, right? X of d plus n of d. P of d is L by 1. This is scalar. This is L by 1. This is L by 1. Okay, and we already know what is the time domain signal y of k looks like, right? We already know. Okay. Let's write. We might have used the notation using k in brackets before, but anyway, this is now in vector form. This is L by 1, this is a scalar, and this is L by 1. This is a convolution of a vector with a scalar. Pk contains Pk 0, Pk1, Pk2 up till Pk L minus 1. And similarly, the oversamples are collected in this vector y. Okay? Now, what we are going to do is, of course, this WD is different from the linear equalizer, although we use the same symbol WD. This is called a feed-forward filter. And this is called a feedback filter. Okay? Okay. Now let us write this corresponding system equations for this receiver in time domain. Okay? So at this point, Zk is obtained by the input Yk convolved with Wk, that is the feed forward filter, right? This is L by 1, 1 by L. So what appears here is a scalar, okay? Basically it's a bank of filters, just like in the case of linear equalizer, each acting on the corresponding oversampled received signal, right? This is basically a summation of Yki with Yki convolved with Wk and summed over all I 0 to L. Okay, we'll write that in. Okay, and minus, this is 1 minus B of D. B of K has D transform B of D. Okay? We will constrain B of K such that B0 is equal to 1, B of K equal to 0 for K less than 0. That means B of K is causal and monic. Basically the first step is unity. This is a constraint we start with. We are going to force B0 to be 1, B of K equal to 0 for K less than 0. So it is strictly causal filter. B of K is B0, which is equal to 1, and these are all. That is the impulse response for B of K. So this can be written as, well, what does 1 minus B of D mean? 1 minus B of D simply means it is this portion. 1 minus B of D means B of D has 1 plus B of D is, can be written as 1 plus Bk D raised to K, K equal to 1 to infinity. 1 minus B of D is this portion, which is exactly these steps. So we are going to convolve 1 minus B of D with x of K. So that will turn out to be okay, this is the convolution between 1 minus B of D and x of D. Okay? What it means is that we have the symbols coming in, they get convolved with this particular filter. That means B1 xk minus 1 plus B2 xk minus 2 and so on and so forth. We omit the first term corresponding m equal to 0 because it is 1 minus B of D and the minus sign corresponds to this. So This is what you will get here in time domain. Okay? So what we are trying to do here is that we are going to remove the ISI caused by all the past data symbols and leave out the current data symbols, which is XP. You may be asking what is the role of this filter. Well, let us say this filter doesn't exist. It's a hypothetical. If that filter doesn't exist, the channel impulse response could be something like this. Then if I apply this kind of a receiver, you are going to, this ISI is caused by these taps with very high amplitude, and if at all one error is made in the current decision, that will seriously affect your overall performance. So this filter, you'll see that it will act in such a way that V of k is causal, monic, and it will also be minimum phase. One property of minimum phase channels is that if you sum up the energy of the first k taps, that is always higher than the energy contained in the remaining taps. Okay? That is a property of minimum phase channel. That means overall you can expect this to sort of, not necessarily gradually decrease. Yeah. So the sum of, basically more of energy, when I say energy, it's Bk square. Okay, the impulse response, you square it, that's the energy contained in each tap. Most energy is concentrated around the origin, not somewhere here. That's a desirable property for a decision feedback equalizer. Okay, so W of D will act in such a way that we end up with that condition. We'll see that in a little short while. Okay, let's expand this convolution. Okay, so y of k is equal to that is Z of. Okay, this is 1 by L, this is L by 1. So there will be another inner summation if you have to really write it explicitly. And of course the convolution, of course the symbol goes away. This is a convolution. So it's a convolution between a row vector and a column vector. Okay? Of course in the scalar case, this is just a simple convolution. Okay. We will also show that this filter is causal, monic, and minimum phase, and we will also show that this filter is non-causal and it is of maximum. Okay, we'll show that in a moment. There are implications. Okay, we'll show that first implication is it is strictly non-causal. Okay, fine. Okay, now we haven't started with MMSE DFT. Well, we are ready to make decisions once ISI is subtracted out. At this point, ISI is strictly caused by the past data samples. Okay, therefore we'll eliminate it, and then we're ready to make decisions. Okay, so we'll end up with the model zk equal to xk minus zk, and we can rewrite ek as xk minus zk. And as usual, we'll proceed with the minimum mean square, minimization of the mean square error that leads to MMSE receiver. In this case, we call it MMSE DFE because it also takes into account the presence of the feedback section. Okay, so from now on, it's fairly straightforward, the rest of the derivations. So we wish to minimize expected value of ek square over the choice of wk and bk. The two filters you have to optimize, right? No longer one filter. You have to find the optimal feed forward filter as well as the feedback filter. Okay, this is the minimization criteria. Choose wk bk such that it minimizes expected value of ek. Okay. Let's rewrite z of d is equal to y of d w of d into 1 minus b of d into x of d. Is that right? Is that right? That's exactly what we did, right? At this point, we have feed forward filtering and we have a feedback section which excludes one from this particular filter. Okay. E of d, we'll use small e, is equal to x of d minus z of d. I'm just writing the d transform of this. Okay? And this is the d transform we obtained simply by using this, right? This is not p, this y, right? Sorry about that. Please correct. Okay. Now, as usual, we apply the orthogonality principle and let us see what happens. So, applying orthogonality principle, okay, expected value of the error, well, basically its error is orthogonal to the input. That means expected value of E of d multiplied with y conjugate d minus star is equal to 0. Well, the error is scalar and this is y of d is L rows, one column, and this is 1 by L. Okay, what is E of d? E of d is x of d minus z of d, that is minus y of d, w of d, plus plus b of d into x of d minus no. This is minus plus. This could be a problem. Yeah. No problem. Yes. This is 1 minus. Okay, this should be a positive. That's where things went wrong. Okay, this is a plus symbol, right? Huh? This should be a plus symbol. Please correct that. And 1 minus b of into x of t. So this is the ISI which is totally eliminated because the 1 minus b of d is basically the first half is eliminated, rest of them has a negative sign appended. That is it. So that gives us basically a plus symbol here and a minus symbol. Is that okay now? So this is a plus because it's a plus here, and 1 minus b of d is the ISI. You just call it ISI with a negative sign, and you add it to the received signal. It removes the ISI. Because anyway, there is a minus sign. Okay, so there should be a plus here because in the system y of d into x of d plus 1 minus b of d into x. Okay. Now, well, this x of d happily cancels out, and what we are left with is, you can write it b of d into x of d minus y of d into d of d. The whole thing is multiplied with y star d minus. Is that fine? Please check. Okay. Now let's look at the dimensions. This is a scalar. This is a scalar. This is L by 1. Well, you should have written it as W of D into just the order. It is 1 by L, L by 1. Just be careful with the order. If it is scalars, they're fine. They're vectors. You have to be a little careful. Okay, this whole thing becomes a scalar, which is okay. Fine. Now let's take the expectation inside. V of d is not random. Expected value of x of d y star d minus is equal to w of d into expected value of y of d y star d minus star. Okay, so this is rxy, this is ryy of d, this is rxy of d. Okay, so we want the solution for w of d, that is equal to v of d rxy of d multiplied by, we will multiply ryy of inverse d on both sides, is a scalar. B of D is a scalar. Okay, first point. If I decide to put B of D is equal to 1, if I choose B of D is equal to 1, that removes the feedback section and this becomes a linear equivalence. The solution will be W of D is Rxy of D, Ry by inverse D is what we had before. And if we choose to keep the B of D, the optimal B of D, whatever it is, then the solution would be modified by applying this filter B of D to this MMSE section. So MMSE filtering is already a part of MMSE DA. Okay. In fact, this front end section will contain the standard MMSE solution multiplied by B of D. Okay. So let's solve for the general case now. Okay. Before we do that, we need to write this in explicit form. W of D is equal to D of D. What is Rxy? We have done it in the previous section. That should be Rxx of D multiplied by P star D minus star. Is that right? Is it correct? Well, what is Y of D? Y of D is P of D, X of D plus N of D, and if I put expected value of X of D into Y star D inverse, this X star comes here, P star, and expected value, you take it expected value of X of D, X star D inverse, that is Rx of D, and P star D inverse, that is Rxy of D. We have done this in the previous lecture. Okay, it's merely a repetition. And the second part is Ryy of D. I am writing it here. I put an into mark. Ryy of D is P star D inverse Rxx of D. This is already derived into P of D for lack of space plus Rnn of D the whole inverse. This already has been derived in the previous lecture. Ryy of D. All you have to do is substitute for Y of D multiplied by Y star D inverse and take the expectation of Y of D into Y star D inverse. You end up with P star D inverse Rxx of D, P of D, Rnn of D whole inverse. Okay? I will rewrite it here. W of D is equal to B of D Rxx D P star D inverse P star D inverse Rxx of D P of D plus Rnn of D. Fairly lengthy expression. Cutting into whole inverse. Okay, well, it's basically this whole part is the MMSE section, and V of D is going to modify it to give you the W of D for the MMSE DA. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to apply so-called matrix inversion lemma on this, which we have done in the previous lecture. Okay, if you do that, okay, that is a homework exercise. You'll have to prove that yourself. We will end up with Rn inverse D, P star D inverse. It's just basically a vector matrix manipulation. Okay? Rxx inverse D plus P star. It's going to be quite lengthy. So what I am going to do is, I'm going to put P of D here, and I'm going to write the rest of it in the denominator because it's a scalar. So the whole thing is a scale. Okay? So as usual, we have a noise whitening filter followed by a match filter followed by some B of D. We'll talk, well, not B of D, yeah, well, B of D and, well, I will not write B of D as that. There's a noise whitening filter, there's a match filter, and then there's one more filter that is MMSE. Okay, this is the MMSE section. This is a match filter. Of course, they are all vector discrete time filter. This is a noise widening filter. Strictly speaking, actually, this you have to do a Cholesky decomposition on RNN and write it as LU or L Hermitian, and you have to put L Hermitian or L inverse, that is a noise widening filter, and then you have to put L inverse P, that is the widening match filter. So you can do a further split of this filter, but we'll leave it like that. Okay, we'll come to that later. Okay, then followed by B of D, and then plus the rest of the receiver powers. Okay? Okay, so we have not yet solved the entire problem because we don't know what B of D is. Okay, we have to solve for B of D, and then we have to solve for the minimum mean square error. Okay. Now we are going to invoke one of the most important results in estimation theory. That is basically what is called scalar spectrum factorization that you will encounter in estimation and detection. Well, this is indeed an estimation and detection problem. So therefore, it is quite natural to encounter this spectrum factorization. Okay. Okay. What we are going to do is, we're going to attack a sub-problem, and then we'll find the solution for the feedback filter. Once the solution for feedback filter is known, you have the solution for the feed-forward filter completely. Okay, let's consider this part. Except for this little additive term, what is this? That is the D transform of the impulse response of a white and match filter. What is the D transform of the? Well, basically, recalling that Y of D is P of D, X of D plus N of D. If you apply this filter on this, what would be the total impulse response? Okay, total impulse response would be P star D inverse Rn inverse of D multiplied by P of D. That is the total impulse response after applying these two filters. Okay? Just keep it in mind. Okay? That is equal to gamma into G of D, G star D inverse. And this G of D and G star D inverse have some special properties. Okay? We'll see what they are in a moment. Okay? This is called certain covariance term. You can call it some type of covariance. Okay, because covariance obeys the Hermitian property. It is some kind of a covariance. Well, if you look at this keenly, what this part is indeed the covariance of the noise at this point, right? Let's write down the covariance of the noise at this point. This part you have to use. Okay, let us look at the system output at this point. Okay, so far I have put two filters. What is the filter here? Well, P star D inverse Rn inverse D. This is the filter at this point. This is the filter that I have applied. See that? Yeah, P star D inverse Rn inverse of D multiplied by Y of D. That is P of D X of D plus N of D. This gives us P star D inverse this I call white and match filter response. This portion, because this is a white and match filter, and white and match filter response. After applying, this is what you would get, because this is what multiplies X of T. Okay. But interestingly, I also have P star D inverse star Rn inverse D multiplying N of D. Okay. Now, if you compute the covariance of the noise at this point, that is the covariance of this term. Let's say it's called N tilde T. Expected value of this noise P star D inverse Rn inverse D N of D multiplied with conjugate Hermitian of, like saying this is N tilde of T. We want to compute expected value of N tilde of D, N tilde Hermitian D inverse. This is what we want to compute. That's the covariance of the noise. This noise part, and that would be obtained by multiplying this with N star D minus Rn inverse D. Rn of D is already Hermitian, so there is no point in putting star and D inverse. Okay, if you want, you can put it. And P of D. If I move the expectation inside, I would get P star D inverse Rn inverse D, and expected value of N of D, N star D inverse is, no, expected value of N of D, N star D inverse is Rn N of D. Well, we don't make the assumption that the noise is white. This is a very general receiver. You can make the assumption that noise is white later on. But I have kept everything Rx of D, Rn of D as it is. It's very general. Okay, that is Rn of D. Now you could have made that assumption like in the book, but I have not done it. So if you see that these derivations are a little different from the one in the book. Okay, I have made it much more general than that. And Rn star inverse D inverse is Rn of D, because Rn of D is, it's a covariance. Covariance has this Hermitian property. Therefore, Rn star D inverse is again is equal to Rn inverse of D into P of. Well, these two cancel out. What do you end up with? something here? The covariance of the noise is actually equivalent to the white end match filter response. Okay? The covariance of the noise at this point is equivalent to the. Okay? So if I just ignore this part, then I'm going to decompose this into a causal part and non-causal part. This is causal, monic, minimum phase, and this is non-causal and maximum phase. Well, I'll prove that in a moment. Okay. So any function of this type, okay, can be decomposed into product of two polynomials. One is causal, monic, and minimum phase. That means all poles and zeros are inside the, well, in this case outside the unit circle, because it's not G of Z, it's G of D. So I think this causal, monic, yeah, this might become not minimum phase, but this might become maximum phase. Because, remember Z transform and D transform are a little different, so we'll leave that. Okay. We'll write that. Okay. So, any case, a covariance function of this type, a D-domain polynomial, can be decomposed into a causal part and non-causal part, a product of. Okay, and some constant. I'll show you how it can be done. Okay, I'll prove that in a moment. Okay, so yes, it's fine. This is causal, monic, minimum phase, and by minimum phase, all poles and zeros are inside the unit circle. Are inside the unit circle for G of D. So G star D inverse strictly obeys the opposite. Okay, and causal is G of K is 0 for K less than 0. Monic is G0 equal to 1, and all poles and zeros are inside the unit circle. And G star D inverse is strictly the opposite of it. Causal, monic, and maximum phase. Okay. Okay. You might be wondering why I am decomposing this particular some sort of virtual covariance into a causal and a non-causal part. You'll see that it is worthwhile to do so. Okay. Now, and you will also be wondering why I have written this part and the covariance of noise at this part. In fact, all these things come into play in a moment. Okay. So this part I will replace with gamma into G of D and G star D inverse. Okay. Lack of space, I'll just write it. Gamma into G of D, G star D inverse. Okay? And it can be shown that the MIC, the solution, the choice of the filter B of D that minimizes the mean square error is equal to G of D. You might be wondering why it is so. That we'll deal with it separately because this can't solve all of them. If you choose B of D equal to G of D, you end up with the choice gives the minimum MSE. Well, you'll have to prove it. Maybe I'll give it as an exercise. Okay, you prove it. Take it as an exercise. Write the expressions for the minimum mean square error and then plug and then show that this choice minimizes the mean square. Okay. Fine. Well, remember we wanted to have a B of D with the property that B0 equal to 1 and Bk equal to 0, K less than 0, right? Well, this satisfies. The polynomial G of D satisfies it. So no problem. Okay. If I do that, if I substitute B of D equal to G of D, these two cancel out. Now my new solution is, okay, this is yet another block diagram. I will have a noise widening filter followed by a match filter, and then I'll have a filter that is gamma times G star D inverse. G star D inverse is non-causal and maximum phase. All poles and zeros are outside the unit circle, and 1 over G star D inverse is again a stable filter. It is realizable. 1 divided by G star D inverse is a realizable filter. Of course, it may have infinite. Okay. So this is the structure of the feed forward. Then there is a plus sign and then followed by the rest of the display. Okay. It can also be shown that in the high SNR regime, that is, if I let Rn of D to go to 0, okay, which kind of implies that this part goes away, okay, this filter is indeed widens the noise at this point. This filter widens the noise at this point. How is that? Well, let's drop this term. This is the covariance, and if I go through this filter 1 over G star D inverse, the covariance of the new noise at this point will be white. This filter whitens the noise at this point. Noise contained whitens the input noise. It not only widens the input noise, but also gives you a new impulse response. What is the new impulse response at this point? Anybody? The new impulse response is this divided by gamma into G of D. Okay? And this can be written as this divided by G star D inverse. Let's write it. What is the new impulse response in the limiting case when the noise goes to 0? Intuitively, what should it be? Let us say at this point I put this filter. Remember, I have written the system equation up till this point. Now I am going to put gamma into G star D inverse, and then this is the P star D inverse Rn inverse D P of D into X of D plus noise part. Now if you write it as gamma into G of D into G star D inverse this cancels this, gamma cancels this. Now the new signal part is g of d into x of d plus some n hat of d new noise. Well, what happened? What has the feed forward filter done to the original received signal? See, under the assumption that ISNR RNN tends to 0. I made that assumption. Okay. Without that, it's a little. This is called, in fact, a zero forcing DFT. If I make the assumption that RNN of D tends to 0. This is the feed forward filter. It has given us a new impulse response g of d into x of d plus n hat. What is the property of g of d? Causal monic minimum phase. Causal z naught equal to 1. Causal monic z naught equal to 1. Causal zk equal to 0. K less than 0. That means this filter has reshaped the entire impulse response. The original impulse response is quite arbitrary. Could be anything. In fact, after applying a match filter, the new impulse response is two-sided. At the output of the match filter, the impulse response is always at the causal part and the non-causal part. That's what happens if you apply a match filter. And this filter, which is strictly a non-causal filter, okay, acts on the received signal such that the new impulse response is causal, monic, and minimum phase. That means the ISI is one-sided. Impulse response is one-sided. Therefore, the ISI is also comes from one side, not both sides of the signal. So now it is very convenient to apply the feedback section because G of D is indeed V of D. So all I have to do is multiply this with subtract out plus 1 minus V of D into X of D. That gives us X of D plus, so I will call it E of D maybe. X of D plus, this is the ISI removal, and this is Z of D. And up till here it is, it's not Y of D, but it's some intermediate point. So what do you learn from this? The feed forward filter makes the new impulse response one-sided, okay, strictly causal, so that you can implement a DFT. Make decisions, cancel out the AS. Not only the feed-forward filter makes the new impulse response causal, monic and minimum phase, at least in the ISNR regime. The new noise at this point, well, it is white because this filter whitens the noise of the noise that comes at me. So it kills two birds with one shot. This filter acts as not only as a noise whitening filter, but also produces a new impulse response, which is causal, monic, and minimum phase. Well, that's great. So that you can apply a DFT. So, having white noise is a desirable condition nowadays. Okay. But you may ask, what happens in the low SNR regime and medium SNR? Well, in the low medium SNR regime, we know that MMSC DFE is a bias receiver. All we have to do is remove the bias at this point. Symbol by symbol detector, you introduce a bias removal circuit. Okay, and if you remove the bias, it maximizes the SNR, but unfortunately, the noise at this point need not be it's neither white nor Gaussian, because we know that MMSC filter leaves out some residual ISI. Remember, a similar phenomena happens here. You will always leave out some residual ISI because of presence of this point. Because we didn't factor this we factored it. Then you may ask, why we should have factored this out. The problem is, if the system contains zeros, okay, this factorization does not exist. If at all you have a zero, if this impulse response has zeros, then this factorization does not exist. So this acts as the stabilizing factor, so that this factorization always exists. Okay, so this structure is called 0% DFE. If you ignore this term and let Rn of D to go to 0, of course, in the presence of white noise. If it is not white, then we still have it. Okay, but in general, this factor helps out in this is necessary so that this factorization always exists. So the MMSCD solution always exists. Okay. Well, we still haven't solved all the questions. We haven't told you exactly what is the minimum mean square error. What is the SMR at the output of the MMSCD? That we haven't answered. And also we haven't answered exactly how to compute this factorization. Okay? Here. Here. Well, you can see it right away. Remember, I have written an expression for the covariance of the noise. Okay? That was basically this expression, right? Once I put 1 over gamma into G star D inverse, okay, into the filtered noise, let me write it down what it was. It was P star D inverse, Rn inverse, D into N of T. Well, let's see the noise whitening effect. You want to see exactly how it happens? Well, I'm going to put this filter right, 1 over gamma G star D inverse, and that's going to act on this noise. That is P star D inverse Rn inverse D N of D. Now, let us compute the covariance of this new noise, filter noise. Right? That is the noise covariance at this point. Let us see. Well, that is basically expected value of this N star D inverse, again Rn inverse conjugate D inverse P of D, because P star D inverse becomes P of D, and 1 over gamma into G of D. Okay? This is equal to expected value. If you move it N of D N star D inverse, it becomes Rn of D, P star D inverse Rn inverse D. This is again Rn of D. This is admission. I can write it as Rn inverse D, P of D, divided by gamma into G star D inverse into G of D, because I just didn't include this term. There are two gammas, right? Okay, fine. Well, this cancels out this. P star D inverse Rn inverse D into P of D is equal to what? Gamma into G of D, G star D inverse. So I will end up with 1 over gamma in the highest and order. Now what is the new noise covariance? Constant. So that is why. Okay? So this filter acts as a noise whitening filter as well as a filter that produces a minimum phase overall response at this point. And it also turns out that G star D inverse is non-causal and maximum phase, and 1 over G star D inverse can also be shown to be non-causal and maximum. And it also exists. That you can leave it as an exercise. So you can over G star D inverse is also non-causal. Well, actually, it's not about 1 over G star. Actually, this entire combination is non-causal. Okay? The entire combination is non-causal. So the W of D itself is a non-causal, but it is stable and it is real. It may have infinite. Okay. So having that question addressed, we'll proceed to derive the minimum mean square error, which is of great significance. Because ultimately we are after deriving the receiver structure as well as we want to quantify the SNR at the output of the MMSC DFT. Okay. RE of D, the covariance of the error term is defined as expected value of E of D, E star, D inverse. We have the expression for E of D. We know what is W of D. We have derived it. We know what is B of D. We have a whole set of relationships. If you plug all of them in, we will end up with something like this. Okay? This is what we will end up with for the minimum, the covariance of the error term. And in fact, if B of D is chosen to be 1, this is exactly what we had for a linear equalizer. Is that right? And the minimum mean square error is equal to what was that? Minus 1 by 2t2. It's pi by 2t2. No, actually pi by tt2. That's pi by t. RE of e to the power of minus j omega t d omega, and with the scaling t by 2 pi. Okay, you can use this expression, and using the property that B of D is causal, monic, and minimum phase, you should be able to show that the optimum choice of the feedback filter is B of D equal to G of D. I will leave out the details. Okay, I have given you all the hints. Show that B of D equal to G of D minimizes MSC. Okay? If that is the case, well, the minimum mean square error becomes, remember there was a gamma, G of D, G star D inverse, these get cancelled out, then I will end up with 1 over gamma. The minimum mean square error is 1 over gamma. So we need to figure out what is this gamma and what is the solution for G of D explicitly, given that the rest of the quantities P of D or N of D are given. Okay? That will be done in 4 or 5 steps. So what have we done so far? We computed the feed-forward filter expression. We know the feedback filter expression, and we know the minimum mean square error. But actually, this part is the real key step. You have to perform this, what is called spectrum factorization, and I would call it a scalar spectrum factorization because this is a scalar term. It's not a matrix. Okay, this is called scalar spectrum factorization.
if you solve this problem using finite length filters, it turns out that this is a covariance matrix, and this turns out to be some kind of a LU decomposition in matrix domain. Okay, it's called Cholesky factorization. Okay, there are many algorithms in the literature. In fact, you will encounter this when you design finite length solutions. But in frequency domain or the one involving D domain using infinite length filters, the problem is quite different. This is equivalent of Cholesky factorization. It's called scalar spectrum factorization. Given a two-sided polynomial, how do you decompose into causal and non-causal parts with the property that this G of D is causal, monic, and minimum phase. And it turns out that this solution always exists. And this goes to the heart of estimation theory. Okay, when I solve for the solution, you will see that it goes back to Wiener estimation and Wiener filtering, and it's highly related to Wiener filtering and basically Wiener filtering. Okay. So how do you solve this? Well, it's not quite straightforward, but it only involves 4 or 5 steps. Okay. So what we will do is we will handle this in frequency domain, or you can also handle it in D domain, no problems. But let's just give me a frequency domain. Substitute D equal to e to the power of minus j omega t. Okay. Without loss of generality, you can set t equal to 1. Okay. Just make things simpler. Okay. Here. We'll take what is called the log spectrum. We'll take the natural logarithm of this one. Well, of course, this becomes e to the power of plus j omega because there is a conjugation, right? Okay. I'll leave it like that. P star takes care of. This is the log spectrum. Okay? Okay. And I'll expand this log spectrum into a Fourier series. Okay? Okay? I'll expand this into a Fourier series. This is e to the power minus j omega. Well, t is left out, it is k. Okay? It is a discrete Fourier series. Okay? Ck is discrete. This is a band limited process, right? It is between minus 1 over omega is between minus pi by t to plus pi by t, and if you drop out t, it's between minus pi to pi. Okay? And since it is the entire system is discrete time, you can assume this to be periodic outside of this interval. Okay? Because it's a discrete time system. Okay? So you may say, does the Fourier series exist? Well, in this case, it turns out that it always exists because, if you let this to be, this is a covariance term. If you let this to be positive, let us say Rxx this is basically covariance of the transmit symbols. Usually it turns out to be a constant, sigma x square or something. It is a constant. Even if you have zeros in the spectra, this kind of protects it, and logarithm doesn't involve zeros. So the integral always exists, integrated over minus pi to plus pi. Okay? Therefore, basically it has to, the Fourier series always exists. Our job is to find this decomposition, right? So what we do is, we'll take this part, let's call it Q of e to the power of minus j omega. Q of e to the power of minus j omega is equal to e raised to summation ck e to the power of minus j omega k equal to minus infinity to plus infinity. Okay? Now we'll play a small trick here. We'll write this as e raised to the first term c0 and e raised to summation ck e to the power of minus j omega k ranging from 1 to infinity. K ranging from minus infinity to minus 1. Okay? Now, e raised to x, I can expand it as 1 plus, well, there is an infinite series, right? You can expand e raised to something as an infinite series. You can make infinite series expansion. This is gamma. This is g of e to the power of minus j omega. And this is g star e to the power of, well, I'll just put plus j omega. I think I'm not quite sure what the convention is, but it involves plus j omega. Okay. If you keenly observe, g of e to the power of minus j omega can be written as summation gk e to the power of minus j omega k equal to 1 to, well, k equal to 0 to infinity. Why is that? Well, e raised to something involves 1 plus, right? So I can in fact write this as 1 plus k equal to 1 to infinity. Can I write like this? Where gk are the corresponding terms, you pick it up from this expansion. Expand this. Infinite series. Okay? And it turns out that g star e to the power of j omega is basically obtained from g of e to the power of minus j omega. It's quite straightforward to see that. Okay? Now I can go back and just rewrite this in d domain. I mean, it hardly matters whether I write it in frequency domain and d domain. So I can write it as q of d, this q of d is equal to this g of d into gamma g of d into g star d inverse. So what this method gives us is that a way of obtaining the coefficient g of k. Okay? But you may say, well, it involves infinite number of terms. Well, that's the hard part. So we don't really use this method for implementation. There are other ways of doing this. But nevertheless, it shows that this decomposition is possible. And what is gamma here? You should be able to tell me. See, gamma is related to C naught, right? Well, gamma is e raised to C naught. And C naught is, or I can put minus pi by t. Q of e to the power of minus j omega d omega. Well, it's not q, it's logarithm of base e, q of e to the power of minus j omega d omega. Okay? And minimum mean square error is 1 over gamma, and the SNR at the output of MMSC DFE is the symbol energy sigma x square. Well, of course, now we are going to assume that the symbols are IID and all that. Okay? Divided by mean square error, that is equal to sigma x square into e raised to C naught. And the expression for C naught is given. Okay? And the SNR at the output of the MMSC DFE unbiased is equal to, what would it be? Well, as far as the bias is concerned, the same argument will work. The SNR decreases by a factor 1. SNR has got output of the MMSC DFE unbiased is sigma x square e raised to c naught minus 1. Okay. Now I will ask one fundamental question. At this point, if the ISI is eliminated perfectly, what is the mutual information I would get in the system model where Zk equal to xk minus ek? Under the assumption that ek is white and Gaussian. We know that it is neither white nor Gaussian. It's white and Gaussian only when in the high SNR regime where noise part is ignored. Okay. Nevertheless, the mutual information for this system model, that is the MMSC DFE receiver, I of MMSC DFE is equal to log of base to 1 plus SNR of MMSC DFE unbiased, and that is equal to log base 2. Well, let's put it base E for convenience. We can convert to, and we know that 1 plus SNR of MMSC unbiased is sigma x square into e raised to c naught. Okay? Okay, without loss of generality, we'll just assume, actually you can make some simplifications. We'll assume sigma x square is equal to 1. You can always make it 1. Okay? And this will become equal to c naught. Okay? And c naught is equal to p by 2 pi minus pi by t2 plus pi by t log of rxx inverse of e to the power j omega, that again is sigma x square inverse, that will assume that rxx of e to the power of j omega equal to 1. Okay, I'm just making some simplifying assumptions, it doesn't hurt. That is equal to 1 plus p Hermitian e to the power of j omega Rnn inverse e to the power of minus j omega, well the t also we can drop it, into p of e to the power of plus j omega whole thing multiplied by d omega. And that turns out to be the mutual information for the original input-output system model, that is y of d is equal to p of d x of d plus n of d, that is the open loop capacity of a frequency selective channel. Okay? And in fact, you can get the same capacity by using OFDM by dividing the bandwidth into several narrow band channels. Essentially, this can be obtained as 1 over n summation log of 1 plus p star of omega Rnn, well Rn inverse I'll call it sigma n square p of omega, that is basically p p omega or delta omega k, well I just, how would I say that, p of k in OFDM there is something that comes k equal to 1 to n, as n tends to infinity, this is the capacity you will get in OFDM system, right? 1 plus SNR of the subchannel, where p of k is something that is loosely related to p of e to the power j omega. Okay? Of course, we're going to talk about cyclic prefix and all that. But loosely speaking, OFDM gives you something like log of 1 plus pk square, where pk is the DFT of the channel impulse response. That is SNR. Sigma n square is the noise variance. So assume it to be white. you'll also get something like that. So essentially, MMSC DFE gives you the same capacity as OFDM, although they are quite different methods. OFDM requires channel coding to achieve the capacity, whereas MMSC DFE needs channel coding, but nevertheless, a bulk of the job is done by the receiver. Okay, so now you just need to design a code to match to this AWGN channel at this point. That is, you have to design a code with certain characteristics, code for AWGN channel at the effective SNR of MMSC DFE unbiased. Whereas in OFDM, you have to encode such that each subcarrier, essentially you have to code for all the subcarriers. I'm talking about the system without feedback here. This is the rate you have to assign for each subchannel. Okay? So, what we will do next is we'll take this MMSC DFE and MMSC both. We'll study the performance in fading channels or frequency selective channels. That's one. The second is, in fact, you can show that an MMSC DFE gives you the full diversity benefit even without involving coding, because equalization itself extracts the diversity gain. And we'll also consider the performance in the presence of co-channel and adjacent channel. Okay?
Sir, can't we eliminate ISA using PNL?
We do, but there is still some penalty involved. We'll eliminate, but there is noise enhancement, and MMSC controls it, but cannot totally eliminate. So MMSC DFE, it gives a further improvement on linear equality. Okay, but of course here still there is a problem. The DFE has to be perfect. Okay, with the whole analysis assumes the DFE is perfect. What is it? That's not a serious problem. This works very well even in low signal to noise ratio. That's not a real issue, but the error propagation has to be controlled. So that's an issue depending on the channel under consideration. Okay? And there's a technique that moves the feedback filter to the transmitter. Okay, we'll discuss this probably at the end of the video. You can move the entire feedback filter back to the transmitter, therefore there is no error propagation. The problem is if you move the feedback filter to the transmitter, then the transmit power increases and you have to do something to control the transmit power enhancement, and that gets a little complicated. We use what is called Tomlinson plate that works in conjunction with MMSC DFE. So the feedback filter, you can move it all the way to the transmitter. Okay, we'll stop here.